Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive, and today we're going deep into the legal whirlwinds that are swirling around the second Trump administration and Elon Musk's kind of foray into the government.
It's a wild ride so far.
Oh, it's
would you say?
Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
We're using this Forbes article by Alison 𝗫𝗀𝗃.
Okay.
It was published just yesterday, February 18th.
Wow, so it's hot off the presses.
Hot off the presses, and it is it lays out a timeline of over 20 legal actions filed just in the first couple weeks of February.
That's a lot in 2 weeks.
It's like an avalanche of legal stuff going on.
It really is unprecedented, the intensity and the speed at which these legal challenges are emerging.
Yeah, so where do we even begin? I mean, do we go chronologically or?
Maybe not chronologically. I think for the listener, it might be more helpful if we kind of group these lawsuits thematically.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So we can connect the dots a little bit.
Connect the dots, see the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with something that really jumped out at me from this article.
Okay.
Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE as everyone's calling it.
Right, yeah.
And all this controversy around data access.
Right.
What's going on there?
Well, for those maybe who aren't as familiar with DOGE, it's essentially this new department, Trump's brainchild, if you will, with a mandate to streamline the entire federal government. And as you might imagine, that involves a lot of data.
That involves a lot of data, and that seems to be where the lawsuits are coming from.
Precisely.
We've got a whole bunch of University of California students who are fighting to stop DOGE from getting access to their student loan data. There's this labor union lawsuit that's going on over DOGE's access to data from like the CFPB, the Department of Labor, Health, and Human Services.
All the sensitive information.
A lot of sensitive information.
Yeah, and what's raising red flags for a lot of folks is that there's a perception that DOGE is trying to bypass those established protocols for accessing this data.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about things like financial records, healthcare data, that kind of sensitive information, you can understand why people are a little on edge.
Definitely. And the lawsuits are saying stuff like accusing Musk and DOGE of, accessing sensitive data and causing mass chaos and confusion.
Yeah, it's strong words.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it's important to note that these concerns are not just theoretical.
Okay.
We already have a federal judge, Judge 𝗕𝗄𝗓, who has stepped in and actually issued an order barring political appointees, including those from DOGE, from access of Treasury systems.
Wow, so that's big. That's the judiciary pushing back against DOGE and the Trump administration.
Absolutely. It raises the question, could this set a precedent for other agencies as well?
Right.
Will we see kind of a domino effect where DOGE's access to other sensitive databases is restricted?
And that's where it gets interesting for me, because if they can't access the data, can they do their job?
Exactly. Can DOGE actually fulfill its mission?
Right.
If it can't access the information it needs?
Right. Is this whole efficiency drive going to just grind to a halt?
Yeah, those are great questions. And of course, the Trump administration is pushing back pretty hard.
Yeah.
Arguing that, Judge 𝗕𝗄𝗓 overstepped his bounds. That this is really hampering DOGE's ability to do its job.
So it's checks and balances in action.
Yeah. Classic power struggle.
So we've got this data access battle going on, but let's move on to another theme that emerges from these lawsuits.
Okay.
Which is direct challenges to some of Trump's executive orders. Specifically, his attempt to rescind birthright citizenship.
Oh yeah, this is a fascinating one.
What's going on there?
Well, we're talking about 4 separate lawsuits. Filed by a really diverse group of plaintiffs. Democratic-led states. You have nonprofits, even expectant mothers.
Wow.
All arguing that this executive order is a violation of the 14th Amendment.
I mean, isn't that pretty clear-cut?
Well, the judges seem to think so.
Okay.
We've already seen 3 judges issue injunctions blocking this order.
Wow.
And their statements have been pretty forceful.
Like, what kind of stuff are they saying?
Well, for example, Judge 𝗂𝗄𝗎 said that the president cannot change, limit, or qualify this constitutional right.
Wow.
Via an executive order.
They're not messing around.
No mincing words.
So it seems like the judiciary is saying like, hey, we're not going to let you just rewrite the Constitution with executive orders.
It really underscores the vital role of the judiciary
in
safeguarding our constitutional rights.
Yeah.
Especially when we have a president who might be testing the boundaries a little bit.
So we've got data access battles. We've got challenges to executive power. This legal landscape is so complex right now. Where do we even go from here?
Well, before we get too bogged down in the weeds, I think it's important for us to zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
And consider, what are the broader implications of all of this litigation?
Okay.
What does it say about the state of our democracy, the balance of power?
Yeah.
We'll delve in all of that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've got all this legal stuff happening, right? Around
Yeah.
the Trump administration and Elon Musk's Doge.
If it-
Let's step back for a sec. What's the bigger picture here?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, honestly, what we might be seeing is a constitutional crisis brewing.
A constitutional crisis.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, why do you say that?
Well, just think about it. You have a president who is clearly pushing those boundaries of executive power, right?
Okay.
Executive orders agency changes all that stuff. And then you have the judiciary that's increasingly willing to push back to check that power.
So it's this tug of war between the two.
Yeah, exactly. And then you add on top of that this incredibly politically polarized climate.
Right.
Like, it's no secret that the partisan divide is deeper than ever.
Yeah, and that just adds fuel to the fire.
Exactly.
And then you throw Elon Musk into the mix.
Oh, yeah.
And things get even more complicated.
Absolutely. I mean, Musk as this cost-cutting czar that was controversial from the get-go.
Yeah.
But with Doge now at the center of all this litigation, his role is even more intriguing.
Intriguing and maybe a little scary.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a brilliant guy, but he's also a little unpredictable, shall we say.
Yeah, and now he's got access to all this sensitive government data.
That's a little frightening, and it's not just the data access stuff.
Right.
You know, the Forbes article mentioned those lawsuits over Trump trying to dismantle U.S. aid and the proposal for a massive buyout for federal employees.
Right. Huge issues with potentially massive consequences.
Yeah.
The USAID lawsuit in particular is raising those questions about, is it even legal to circumvent Congress to make these big changes?
Right. So it's not just about data. It's about how the government even functions.
Exactly. And ultimately, the courts are going to play that crucial role in deciding, who has the authority to do what.
It feels very unstable right now.
Incredibly high stakes.
Like the stakes couldn't be higher.
Yeah. And then you add in the fact that we have a Supreme Court that's already so divided. I mean, the outcome of these legal battles could really impact the balance of power in our government for years to come.
Okay, so we've got this potential constitutional crisis. We've got this crazy political divide.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk right in the thick of it.
Right in the middle of it.
What gives you hope?
You know what I find encouraging is just how many people and organizations are willing to stand up and fight for what they believe in.
Okay.
I mean, we're seeing lawsuits from states, from unions, nonprofits, even individuals.
Yeah, that's true.
It shows the resilience of our democracy, don't you think?
It shows that people are participating.
Exactly.
That they're not just letting things happen.
They're demanding accountability. They're engaging in the process.
Yeah.
That's why.
And it's not just some theoretical argument.
Right.
These lawsuits represent real people who are being affected by all this.
Students worried about their data privacy.
Right.
Federal employees facing job insecurity.
Yeah.
Expectant mothers, fighting for their rights.
Makes it all feel much more real.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that these legal battles have very real-world consequences.
Yeah.
For a lot of folks, the courts are that last line of defense.
Yeah.
The only place they can turn to when they feel like their rights are being violated.
So as messy and complicated as it seems,
Yeah.
it's kind of a sign that the system is working.
It's not pretty, but it's a sign that our democracy is still alive and kicking.
Yeah, it is, but we can't lose sight of the individual cases either.
No, you're absolutely right.
So let's take a closer look at some of the key lawsuits from a Forbes article.
Okay.
All right, so we talked about the bigger picture, but let's zoom in on some of these specific cases.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that the state attorneys general are involved in one that's particularly interesting against Doge.
Oh, absolutely. This one revolves around Doge trying to access data from the Treasury Department.
Right.
That's a perfect example of the judiciary kind of pushing back against that overreach.
Yeah, this is where Judge Engelmeyer comes in, right?
Yes.
He issued that order blocking political appointees from Doge from getting into those treasury systems. What's the latest there?
Well, the Trump administration is really fighting back on this one.
Okay,
They've been pretty vocal about it, saying it's hampering Doge's efforts. They're saying Judge Engelmeyer overstepped. I think the Treasury Department even demanded that he immediately dissolve his order.
Wow, they're not playing around.
No, they really want that access to that data.
They want that data.
But the state AGs who filed the suit, they're not backing down either.
Okay.
They're saying you can't just have unchecked access to this kind of sensitive financial data.
Yeah.
They're worried about privacy violations.
Right.
Misuse, political manipulation even.
It seems like a valid concern.
And it goes beyond just Doge and the Treasury Department.
Okay.
This case really touches on that separation of powers.
Right.
The judiciary is flexing its muscles a little bit, saying, hey, we can check executive power.
Checks and balances.
Even when it comes to something like data access.
So these little details actually represent these bigger
Exactly.
Constitutional issue.
Huge implications.
And speaking of constitutional clashes, we can't forget about the lawsuits challenging that executive order on birthright citizenship.
Ah, yes, these are really fascinating cases.
Yeah.
They show how the courts can really protect those fundamental rights. Remember, we talked about 4 different lawsuits, all saying that this executive order goes against the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear that the judges are agreeing with them.
Okay.
We've had 3 judges block it.
Wow.
With some pretty strong statements like that quote from Judge Kuefner, saying the president can't just change the Constitution with an executive order.
It's a good reminder that no one is above the Constitution.
Exactly. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land.
So we've got data access battles, executive orders, legal battles left and right. This landscape is so complex and the stakes are so high.
They are incredibly high. These cases could really change the balance of power, the limits of what a president can do, even the future of the Trump administration.
So where do we go from here? What should we be watching out for?
I think we got to keep our eye on how these cases move through the courts.
Okay.
Which ones go to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And of course, how will they rule?
Right.
And how about Elon Musk?
Yeah, what about Elon?
Can he navigate all of this? Will Doge actually get anything done, or will it just be bogged down in all this litigation?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I think it's safe to say things are only going to get more interesting from here.
Yeah, this is a really pivotal moment.
It is.
And these legal battles are going to shape the future of our government.
Absolutely.
Well, for our listeners who want to dive deeper, we'll be sure to link that Forbes article by Alison Durkee in the show notes.
Great research.
It's a great place to get all the details and the timeline.
Yeah, and keep exploring these issues.
Yes.
Challenge your assumptions.
Yeah.
Come to your own conclusions. It's what makes a democracy strong.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the legal battles around the second Trump administration and Elon Musk.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep asking questions.